My name is Laura R., also known as Belle, or simply Belle. Not long into my foray into the YouTube world, I became a moderator for first Stuff the Alter Nerd, then Popcorn Planet, then Nerd Report. I was in their communities, paid for memberships, for about 4 months, from October 2021 to February of 2022. I worked on Idealization headlines team. I used to defend them online. I know what it's like to be a member of the cult of Popcorn Planet. Once I saw how Andy uses and abuses his community, intellectually, emotionally, monetarily, even sexually for some, then toss them aside like garbage, I couldn't unsee it. If you question anything in that cult, you find yourself bullied and blocked. No dissent is allowed in the ranks. Since leaving, I've done much research on what makes someone like Andy tick. I've explored topics like cults, narcissistic traits and abuse, and sex addiction. I've created blog articles and videos to share them with you, in the hopes that the more you know, the better prepared you'll be. I don't want others to experience what I did, and if they do, to understand what happened. I do this out of concern, not from some weird form of jealousy. I do this for awareness, and I'm doing my best to fulfill that promise, not clicks and clout. I made a promise to myself to do this for the community I left behind. I'm not your typical hater, despite what Andy and company would have you believe. I was not kicked out. I left, along with a few others, in February of 2022. This is a big distinction. I've been speaking out ever since. I dare you to watch my videos, even my earlier cringier ones. I double dog dare you to watch more than 30 seconds, and to try to do so with an open mind. Now, on to the topic at hand. Narc abuse cycle and Andy's ignore. Idealization phase. Using the cult of Popcorn Planet. According to Mayo Wakefield of Narc Abuse Rehab and expert Dr. Thomas Franklin, MD, a psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, quote, the cycle of narcissistic abuse is a pattern of harmful behaviors used by one person to manipulate and exploit another. Moreover, while specific motives may differ among perpetrators, common objectives involve asserting power, exercising control, and fulfilling narcissistic desires, end quote. As I stated previously, I'm not a mental health expert. I only have a layman's understanding of topics such as these. However, I have been subjected to emotional abuse, which is precisely what this is. I don't believe my father was a full-blown narcissist, but he certainly had some of the same tendencies. My mother was my and my sister's saving grace, and I will be forever grateful. I think control was the main objective growing up. My parents were married in 1961, so my mother was in some ways a typical 60s housewife, but she had a rebellious streak. She treated my sister and I as our own people, not as possessions. Our needs were always greater than hers. My dad, on the other hand, his needs trumped all, and my mother struggled to keep that from overwhelming us. She did the best she could. It shows in how I treat my own child. He amazes me every day. Doing research such as this is mentally and emotionally taxing as well as somewhat triggering. I believe it's important though, so I carry on. Speaking of, let's do just that. Quote, the narcissistic abuse cycle often invokes idealization and devaluation, which becomes chronic. Unfortunately, it leads to discarding the person that has been wrung out and is no longer the shiny new object that made the narcissist feel special in the first place. Often these chaotic, aggressive relationships involve other character pathologies, including borderline and sociopathy. End quote. That is from Dr. Thomas Franklin. Being considered the best thing since sliced bread, alternated with the muck on someone's shoe, is a familiar pattern to me. It fosters a sense of unease that seems to only be alleviated a turn of the cycle. It takes a bit for the idea to set in that even when turned, the quote-unquote idealization won't last, and indeed seems to endure for a shorter period each time. When dealing with someone who has these traits, once you see the pattern, you understand that it really isn't you, it's them. However, if you're dealing with someone who has a true personality disorder, by awaiting, it can be difficult to see them for who they really are. In these instances, I believe leaving is the only option, which is precisely what I did when I left Popcorn Planet. At the time, it was more that I simply didn't have the patience to deal with Andy's moods, and I didn't like how my friends were being treated. Idealization is the initial stage of the narcissistic abuse cycle. It sees the perpetrator meticulously weave a deceitful web to ensnare their unsuspecting prey. The victim is lavish with attention, charm, and performative devotion. They are beguiled by a symphony of compliments and promises. The perpetrator uses a tactic called feature faking to paint an idyllic picture of a secure and ideal union. The victim is seduced and placed on a high pedestal where they are touted as the center of the perpetrator's universe. The victim feels seen, heard, and treasured. Their dreams are seemingly fulfilled. The more narcissistic someone is, the more they are prone to see people as objects. Consequently, during the love bombing stage, perpetrators of narcissistic abuse view and treat their victims as a positive object and hold them in high regard. Back in September 2021, when I stumbled across Popcorn Planet, Andy was still trying to build his channel, having changed the format from mostly movie talk to more about pop culture. Although I don't think the man cares about any of the subject that he makes videos about, or live streams about, he painted a pretty picture when I was there. Pretty enough that I volunteered to work on his headlines team. I was intrigued by learning more about how YouTube works and how to cultivate stories, which is what he told us was going to happen, and it didn't. At least not until after we left. Then they sort of made a token effort at it. And about being part of a community of people comprised of trauma and abuse survivors. Talk about feeling seen and heard. The treasured part came more from Will Morris, Andy's head mod, especially when he talked me up, leading to my being bestowed moderator status. At the time, I thought the problem was more that Andy wasn't keeping control of his head mods or was directing them to destabilize the community, that he didn't want the rest of us mods to get too comfy. And who knows, maybe he was. Perhaps Will and a few others, including co-hosts and commentators on Popcorn Planet, were what is termed as the narcissist's flying monkeys. Quote, a narcissist might use their friends or family, or even yours, as spies or to spread rumors, making them act as substitutes for themselves. Signs someone is a flying monkey. They side with the narcissist no matter the situation or evidence presented to them. They spread gossip or rumors about you. They gaslight or manipulate you. They dismiss or trivialize your feelings. They pass on information about you to help the narcissist harass you. Flying monkeys could be friends or associates of the narcissist, friends or associates of you, or people you think of as authority figures. Exhibit 1. Who you calling ugly? Louis Lecca of Nerd Report just loves to call my friends and I ugly, and claims he knew we were bad seeds, saw us coming from a mile away, and booted us from the community. No, you sad little man, you did not. We saw who you and Andy at all were and left, but keep telling yourself that. Common manipulation tactics during idealization. Counterfeit concern. Perpetrator will deceptively display care or empathy for the victim to gain trust, control, or to further their personal agenda. Data mining. Victims often experience perpetrators expressing an unusual level of interest and curiosity in their preferences, dreams, and goals, as the perpetrators gather information to uncover their wants, needs, and vulnerabilities. This data mining enables the perpetrator to gain insights into the victim's characteristics, strengths, weaknesses, and intention, shaping their seduction strategy based on what they learn. False self. Based off the information collected by data mining and mirroring, the perpetrator constructs an alter ego to reflect the victim's ideal partner. It involves presenting a facade or mask that differs from the perpetrator's authentic self. Moreover, it is used to gain acceptance by camouflaging the perpetrator's predatory nature. Future faking. The victim is given false promises or commitments by the perpetrator about an idealized future to gain their trust or keep the victim invested. The perpetrator paints a picture of positive vision of what's to come, but with no genuine intention of following through. Love bombing. The victim is placed on a figurative pedestal by the perpetrator, who manipulates them into believing that they are soulmates, twin flames, or kindred spirits with intense and relentless attention. The victim is showered with flamboyant displays of adoration and flattery. The victim's wants and needs are recognized and attended to, causing them to become emotionally dependent on the perpetrator. The aim of love bombing is to gain the victim's trust, lower defenses, and establish an intense connection. The behavior is akin to deliberate fattening of livestock prior to their eventual slaughter. Mirroring. In the context of narcissistic abuse, the victim's words, actions, body language, and behaviors are imitated by the perpetrator. The purpose of the mirroring tactic is to cause the victim to feel strongly identified with the perpetrator, who is essentially reflecting the victim's winning qualities back to them to invoke familiarity. Mirroring rapidly establishes rapport, builds trust, and creates a sense of connection between people. It fosters a sense of unity and understanding between the victim and the perpetrator. Pathological lying. Perpetrators are prone to compulsive deception. Their deceptions are invariably self-enhancing. They lie to manipulate others and to lull any suspicions to sleep. Lies are the foundation of the false persona they create to seduce the victim. For example, they may invent a false narrative about their past and claim to have been victimized themselves at some point. Sounds very familiar. I think the only traits I was subjected to were the false self, a tiny bit of love bombing, and a heap of pathological lying. Andy's facade is evident in every single live stream and video he does, in my opinion. As I said above, I don't think he cares about any topic he opines on, except for the amounts of clicks, clout, and cash he can foster. When I expressed my dismay about certain things occurring in the community, Andy spent about a week telling me that he appreciated me. Since then, it's been nothing but lies about me, about my friends, about the whole situation.